Good morning, everyone. We'll be getting started in just a few moments. Okay, Jamie, I have you as a panelist,
Oh, great.
and we have 41 participants right now.
Great. Well, Linda, I'm ready when you are. Just let me know how you want to get started.
I just need you to start your video if you could.
Oh, I'm sorry. Okay. Linda, I don't know why, but we don't have our video button up here.
Okay, let me check you again and see what I can do.
Give me 1 second. That's strange. Get there.
Okay. Hold on. It says Jamie. Are we good now?
We are good now.
Good morning. Thank
Good
you.
morning. How are you? Sorry about that. Technical difficulties.
All right. Well, good morning, everybody, and thank you so much for being here. I'm LJ Williamson with Newsroom PR, and I'm really thankful for all the reporters here, and we're grateful for your coverage of today's event. Today's speakers, and I've put this in the chat window, so in case anybody has any spelling questions. Also in the chat window is a link to a copy of our documents that we're filing. So today's speakers are Grace French, who is a Nassar abuse survivor and president of the Army of Survivors. We'll then have attorney Antoinette Frazier, who is of counsel to White Law PLLC, and then attorney Jamie White of White Law PLLC. Again, thank you so much for being here. And if you are ready to begin, Grace, please do.
Amazing. Thank you so much, everybody, for being here. My name is Grace French, and I'm the founder and president of the Army of Survivors. Not only am I a survivor, but I'm also an advocate, a marketing professional, a sister, fiance, daughter, and founder. Since I came forward about my abuse in 2018, I have dedicated my life to eliminating sexual assault and bringing awareness to sexual violence within athletics. Since this case broke 4 years ago, Michigan State University and USA Gymnastics have been talked about as the enabling institutions that allowed the abuse of hundreds of young athletes to occur. Due to the Department of Justice's report in July, we now know that the FBI should be included in that same group and therefore should be held accountable as well. The FBI, a government institution charged with protecting citizens, failed to protect children and athletes. They put their selfishness above our well-being, and that lack of action by the FBI caused avoidable trauma for survivors like myself. No one should have been assaulted after the summer of 2015 because the FBI should have done its job. To know the FBI could have helped to avoid this trauma, it disgusts me and it hurts me. This incredible systemic breakdown shows that there is needed change in the way that the FBI responds to cases of abuse. We need to continue to pursue accountability for the institutions that allowed athletes and children to continue to see Nassar long after reports were made. They left us at the disposal of a predator. This is about showing those institutions who continue to harbor, enable, and protect predators that they won't get away with it, that there are consequences for turning a blind eye to abuse through inaction. Survivors deserve justice in whatever form that may be. No amount will make up for the abuse that so many endured, but it can be a step toward healing for hundreds of survivors. To those survivors who may be struggling today, you are not alone in this journey. You are worthy of justice. Thank you.
Thank you, Grace.
Next, I'd like to introduce Antoinette Frazier, who is of counsel to White Law PLLC.
Good morning, everyone. I wanted to make a brief statement on behalf of my clients. The Department of Justice is the top law enforcement agency in the United States. It has the most power in our country, and the FBI is under the jurisdiction of the DOJ. When Nassar's sexual abuse of children was reported to the FBI, they turned a blind eye. These agents who failed to act led to this monster continuing to sexually assault women and children for approximately 16 more months. Imagine allowing a sexual predator to continue doing these horrific acts on women and children for 16 more months, wreaking his sick terror on them. And not only did these women and children suffer these unspeakable sexual assaults over and over again, but now they must live with the emotional and mental trauma that permeates their lives every single day. If the FBI had done its job, protected women and children from this monster, Nassar's access to them could have been stopped. If nothing else, the FBI should protect the people in our country. That is the job they are tasked with. Instead, they were careless, reckless, and grossly negligent. Because of that gross negligence, women and children must live with the memories of repeated sexual assaults over those 16 months. This gross negligence needs to stop. This disregard for the physical and emotional well-being of our women and children needs to stop. This silent agreement by the FBI allowed a monster to continue sexually abusing our children, which are our most precious gifts. And if there are those within the FBI that cannot and will not protect the people of this country, our women, and especially our children, from being sexually assaulted by monsters like Nassar, then they need to step aside and allow those who will fight for it and protect them to step in. And I'd like to point out, we use this word survivor, and Grace is such a wonderful survivor, but we use it so carelessly. But truly, the meaning of the word survivor is these individuals are gathering their strength from deep within themselves, and stepping forward each and every day to live their life. And you need to understand the depth of that. Thank you.
Thank you, Antoinette. As LJ indicated, my name is Jamie White. I represent several women who were assaulted by Larry Nassar. I echo the sentiments of Ms. French and Ms. Frazier. And at this point in time, I would like to speak a little more specifically as to the basis for our claim. Yesterday, 13 claims were filed by women who were assaulted by Larry Nassar after July of 2015. They were filed on what's known as the Federal Tort Claim Act. Most recently, we've seen this statute utilized in procuring justice for the victims of the Parkland shooting. These claims were filed with the Office of the General Counsel for the Federal Bureau of Investigation, seeking $130 million in damages. The public has become unfortunately aware of the history of events that led to claims against Michigan State University, U.S. Gymnastics, Twistars, and individuals within those organizations. Today, we're here to talk about something different. These are claims that accrued distinctly outside of the scope of the responsibility for those individual organizations. On July 28th of 2015, the FBI had a meeting with U.S. Gymnastics where it learned for the first time that Nassar had been assaulting young women. In particular, the FBI was informed that 3 gymnasts had been assaulted. It is the FBI's policy, formal policy, that reports of child abuse be dealt with immediately. Senior officials for several years after July of 2015, committed multiple civil and criminal offenses. After the July meeting, there was little action until September 2nd, 2015. 5 weeks after the initial report of him being a sexual predator, there was an interview with one of the victims. This interview did not happen in person. It was done over the phone. This interview was not documented and was never forwarded to the appropriate authorities. Most remarkable about this day or days subsequent to that is there were 2 other identified victims who were never interviewed by the FBI at all. Agent Abbott, the officer in charge, the agent in charge at this point in time, for reasons unknown, did not reach out to the other victims. He did seek counsel from the U.S. Attorney of the Southern District of Indiana, who told him, guided him in no uncertain terms, to forward these allegations to the Lansing FBI field office, where it was agreed that was the appropriate venue not to only investigate Mr. Nassar, but potentially prosecute him. This was never done. In fact, there was never any referral by the Indianapolis field office to Lansing. 17 months after that July meeting, there was a referral to the Lansing FBI. It was not a referral from other FBI agents. It was a referral from the MSU Police Department, who through their own due diligence had blown this case wide open and ultimately decided to bring in the FBI was an important matter, of course. Despite credible reports to the FBI, Nassar continued his reign of terror for almost 17 unnecessary months. In large part, Nassar continued to have access to countless girls on almost a daily basis. An unthinkable and unnecessary number of sexual assaults occurred at the hands of Nassar during that period of time. What is absolutely mind-boggling and disturbing is that during this 17-month period, Agent Abbott apparently didn't have the energy, the interest, or concern to address any of these allegations or follow the instructions of his supervisor in making the appropriate referrals. What he did have the energy, concern, was trying to gain employment. At the same time that Agent was communicating with then CEO Steve Penny about the allegations that have been made in July, he was trying to procure employment with the United States Olympic Committee, an organization which Steve Penny had significant influence in relationships therein. While he didn't have the energy, the interest, or the concern to author a report based on what he had been told on September 2nd, he had the energy, concern to author a resume, which he did submit to the U.S. Olympic Committee, trying to gain employment during this same period of time. This resume was ultimately submitted to the U.S. Olympic Committee for consideration, an event that he lied about during the course of the investigation by the Office of Attorney General. As indicated by Director Ray in the July 21st OIG report and echoed by multiple bipartisan senators from the US Congress, this didn't have to happen. This is an egregious, unthinkable breakdown. We spend a lot of time and resources, for those of us that do this type of work, encouraging young people and all people to report sexual abuse when it occurs. If we can't report sexual abuse to the most powerful law enforcement agency, arguably in the world, then where can it be reported to? In July 21, a report was made public by the OIG that concluded that there were material false statements on behalf of senior FBI officials. There was, on the part of senior officials, there was omitted material information. There was multiple violations of policy and protocol. There was, in particular, violations of protocol and policy that was designed to deal with the allegations of harm against children. And as if that wasn't enough, In May of 2016, the Los Angeles field office of the FBI received credible information of widespread and horrific abuse perpetrated by Nassar. Different allegations than they had received in July of 2015. These allegations were based on behavior that occurred at the Caroli Ranch in Huntsville, Texas. Agents in the Los Angeles field office failed to contact local authorities, the Walker County Sheriff's Office, despite knowledge that a serial rapist was operating within their jurisdiction. They failed to refer the case to the Lansing FBI field office and ultimately did not take any action until the MSU-PD opened the case in Lansing almost 17 months later, very similar to the negligence we saw in Indianapolis. The law and internal policies of the FBI require that reports of sexual abuse of children be addressed immediately. This was not a case involving fake $20 bills or tax cheats. These were allegations of a serial rapist who was known to the FBI as the Olympic US doctor with unfettered access to young women. Two separate field offices, Indianapolis and Las Vegas, violated the law, internal policy, and multiple ethical norms, providing Nassar with an unthinkable window of more than a year to continue with his hideous behavior and reign of terror. Law enforcement has been under a lot of scrutiny as of late. I'm from a law enforcement family. The admissions by Director Ray were again very welcomed, as well as other members of our higher echelons of government who have chimed in on this. But we can't ignore what's occurred. The admissions that have been made are important, and they're appreciated by my clients, and I think they're appreciated by all the victims in this case in general. But more than 100 women were assaulted after July 2015. It did not have to happen. I am calling for an indictment, arrest, and prosecution of any official of the FBI that made material false statements or omitted material information during the course of these events and subsequent investigation. Prosecution, in my opinion, is particularly appropriate where it can be proved that agents sought personal pecuniary gain while grossly neglecting their duty and the welfare of numerous women that came to the FBI for assistance. It is my understanding that Attorney General Merrick has taken the matter under advisement. That is appreciated, and we look forward to participating and assisting as requested. We'll take a few questions at this point in time, and I believe there's a chat box.
So yes, there is a chat window, or there's a Q&A window if anyone has any questions. If you could please type your questions in there. Okay, Kate Wells, I am going to click allow to talk on your, and then I'll get to Carrie Johnson's question next. Kate Wells, yeah.
Sorry about that. You know what?
Kate, I'm sorry, I've muted you because of the echo problem. I'm gonna move on to Carrie's question. If you could type your question in the chat box or in the Q&A box. Next, we'll get to a question from Carrie Johnson. Her question is, have you had any response from the FBI yet to the filing of these claims?
We have not. They were filed yesterday, so I anticipate they will be in the receipt of the Office General Counsel probably today. And Carrie, the Federal Tort Claims Act is a little different than traditionally how we file lawsuits. There's a requirement that we file an administrative complaint to the appropriate agency, and that complaint exists as notice to the FBI and the U.S. government is our intent to file litigation, but that actual litigation can't be filed until 6 months after they've been in receipt of the administrative claim. And I guess more importantly, that 6 month is an opportunity to mediate the claim and try to come to some resolution. If after that 6 month period of time that does not occur, then we're authorized to file an actual lawsuit, which we have already drafted and prepared to do so.
We have a question from Johnny Magdaleno at Indianapolis Star. He's asking about the document that we shared, the redacted document that we shared in Google Drive. He's saying, is it one of the 13 claims filed yesterday, correct? And I think the next logical question is how similar are all the claims to the one that we shared? Are they all fairly identical, or do they have individual differences?
So in large part, they're identical. The basis for the claim is all the same, some of which I talked about in my opening comments. What is different is the extent of injuries that each person arguably suffered, or maybe how they came to them in July of 2015. But the claims are in large part identical at this point.
Okay, so what we shared in Google Drive, and please feel free to contact me if you did not receive that link, is fairly similar across the 13 complaints.
If I could just elaborate, LJ, real quick. So what we filed, so what you'll see in the sample that LJ has forwarded you is basically their template form. It's pretty straightforward. It's just personal information. And we created an addendum to that outlines what we believe to be the basis for our claim.
All right. And next we have a question from Ed White with AP. Can you address how unusual it is to make a tort claim against the FBI for a failure to act? Typically, tort claims are made for direct injury, VA doctors, etc., for example. So how unusual is this?
It's very unusual. As I indicated, we've seen this happen most recently under similar circumstances and allegations as it pertains to the Parkland shootings. Their FBI agents were alerted that the shooter in that case had a propensity to violence, and people were concerned that he was in fact going to shoot up the school. Action was not taken, similar to our case, and ultimately there was a claim filed under the FTCA. It is an unusual claim, but it does not require direct action on the part of the agents in order for there to be liability. In fact, the way the statute reads, it is the violation of policy and law that leads to the liability in these particular circumstances. And to summarize, what the statute says is if agents are operating in the course of their employment and they fail to comply with some level of policy and someone is injured as a result of those failures, then they qualify under the FTCA. And we believe that these claims fall dead smack in the heart of the intent of that statute.
All righty. Thank you. Hi, Kim. We have a question from Kim Kozlowski of Detroit News. Thanks for being here, Kim. Can you confirm all 13 claimants are anonymous? Also, can you tell us why these claims were not filed as a federal lawsuit?
Sure, Kim. So there are, Grace obviously is not anonymous, Grace French. Lindsay Lemke is also a part of this process, and she has been very vocal in public since this whole thing started several years ago. The remainder of the women are anonymous at this point in time. By definition, the administrative complaints are not accessible to the public. When we file a lawsuit, notwithstanding a couple of minors, I expect that people will be named publicly that are a part of that lawsuit process. And then the second piece of your question, I'm sorry.
Why were these claims not filed as a federal lawsuit?
Yeah, so the FTCA has it's a very unique statute. It's been around since 1946, and the government doesn't like to be sued. So they've set out different parameters that have to be followed and different obstacles that have to be hopped over. One of those is that there has to be an administrative complaint filed with the federal agency at concern. And if during that six-month period of time, it creates the ability for the parties to negotiate a settlement. You know, we're cautiously optimistic that there'll be some productive conversations. But until that 6-month period has expired, we're not able to file an actual lawsuit. 6 months from yesterday, we'll be eligible to file a lawsuit in what I believe one of two jurisdictions, either the Southern District of Indiana or the Western District for the state of Michigan, and that's yet to be determined.
Thank you. We also have a brief summary of this information in our press release, which just went out to everybody at the top of the hour. Ed White has another, I'm going to go next to Aaron Bowling from News 10 in Lansing. How many agents are believed to be involved in the negligence? How many are you looking to arrest and indict?
So I'm not looking to arrest anyone, but I am asking that Mr. Garland and his agency take a look at all of the agents that were involved in this process. I don't think anybody should be left out of the inquiry. As far as how many, I think at this point in time, we don't know. I mean, the Senate conducted a relatively thorough hearing where we heard from multiple parties that led to an investigation by the Office of the Attorney General. And we have a very good record that suggests that, at least one, if not two people made false claims during the course of this investigation. And if during the course of discovery, which we'll have access to 6 months from now, we learned that other people were involved, then they should also be held accountable. But at this point in time, I believe that it's an ongoing investigation. I think this was echoed by Attorney General Garland when he asked that prosecution be reviewed again just a couple of weeks ago.
Okay, Ed White has another question. Will more people make claims? You said more than 100 women were assaulted after July of 2015.
I do expect there to be more claims. I've been talking on and off with a colleague. I'll let him speak for himself as to who he is, but I know that he's been working diligently, procuring claims for his clients. And I certainly have heard through kind of a hearsay world that other attorneys are also preparing to file claims. So I do think that we're going to see several more claims.
All right. And we have another note from Kate Wells. She says, to clarify, from a legal standpoint, are the victims included in this tort claim women and girls who were abused during the 17-month period between Penny's original complaint to the FBI and Nassar's eventual arrest?
Yes, Kate, that is our position. That it's our legal opinion that the harm caused by the FBI could not have occurred but for that 15th meeting. So anything that happened prior to July 2015 would not be eligible underneath this legal theory.
Okay. And it looks like we have gotten to all the questions. If anyone else has a question, we'll leave the chat window open. I see a couple of raised hands, but I think that those people typed their questions into the chat. We will soon make this a recording of this webinar available as soon as I can, and the link will be available shortly. I can send it out to everyone. And once again, I would like to thank everyone for being here so much, and we appreciate your coverage of this important issue. Thank you so much for attending, everyone.
Thank you.
Goodbye.